Welcome to the Dynasty Deep Dive, where we go beyond the surface into depths unknown to man. I am joined by a very special guest today, Lewis, Fantasy Pancake on X, one of the best fantasy usernames you're going to find. This man is newly married. He finished fourth in last year's Scott Fish Bowl, and we're going to talk through his rookie guide, 5 rookies that we share a common affinity for in fantasy football. And of course, we're going to talk a little bit about his Scott Fish Bowl experience. So let's get right into it, Lewis. Thanks for joining me on the show, man. Talk to me a little bit about which rookie you are most excited about in the 2025 draft.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. And thank you so much for having me. The one person that I wanted to talk about, and it's a conversation that we have been having all over the place at the minute, and it seems like we're leaning a certain way right now, is the Travis Hunter conversation. And this is probably the hardest conversation for any fantasy football analyst, just fantasy football player right now, especially if you're drafting your rookie draft pre-draft. Where do you take Travis Hunter? How is he going to end up lining up in the NFL? The current rumors, it seems pretty likely that he ends up landing with the Browns. The Browns having way more of a deficiency at wide receiver than corner. But this idea of, we've not seen it in the last at least 15, 20 years. This player who is genuinely elite two ways. And when I sat down to do my scouting and was expecting to be like, okay, yeah, no, he's a good wide receiver and he's a good corner, although I only scouted him as a wide receiver because I'm a fantasy analyst, and was like, no, this isn't just a good player. Like, this might be the best wide receiver in the draft. This might be in position for the 101 if he was just a wide receiver. Like, we're talking that level. And so I think when it comes to just like excitement, pure excitement for a player, this is something we've never seen before. Like, this is something that you can just get excited about because it's a question that everyone playing fantasy football, everyone playing dynasty, whether you're an analyst or you're just playing, everyone is going to have to try and answer that question for themselves in the next few months. And that is just so exciting to me.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And if you've watched the show, you know that I'm all in on this guy. Like
Yeah.
I have some bias. I'm born in Colorado. I'm a CU fan before Dion came to CU, but I watched every game because now they're on TV, national TV, right? And so watched him very closely, blown away by his ball skills, by his twitch, and I've kind of made my sentiment known. Like, I'm happy to be wrong on this guy. If he gets drafted and ends up, they say he's going to be a wide receiver and he only ends up playing 60% of the snaps, like, I'm willing to be wrong on this one, right? Because out of all of the players in this draft, I think he has, and I don't think I've said this in any of the recent years, Hall of Fame potential. Like,
Yeah.
to your point, basically on both sides of the ball, but a little bit more. I believe he is a better wide receiver than cornerback. He's a great cornerback, but I'm all in on this guy. So I'm going to pull up your rookie guide real quick and show the viewers. This is another thing that's awesome about you, Lewis. Like, this is free. So everybody watching this can just go and glean this insight. Go check it out. How many prospects do you have in here?
So it's just 50.
It says it right there. Duh.
Yeah. That I thought that one was pretty clear, but maybe not.
Not big enough font.
No. It's just like the first 2 words in front of you.
Well, so my point is over 50 scouting breakdowns, player comparisons, strengths and weaknesses. So let's do it. Let's get to Travis Hunter. My first call out, unicorn, Colorado, right? If we go to the other players, you call them wide receivers, right? But this guy is a unicorn. I love that. I like the Devonta Smith comparison. When I was at the combine, he had said he models his game a little bit after Jerry Jeudy because he grew up in Florida and watched him a lot growing up. And so I actually see some similars there in terms of like just how violent he is with his route running. And to your point, like that range of outcomes with your projected rookie draft value. Like he could go anywhere from the 101 to the 106. I've been seeing him. I do a fast draft, rookie origins draft, where it's just best ball and you're only drafting rookies. And I've been getting him in the second round. And
Yeah,
that sentiment has changed over the past week since the kind of Adam Schefter has decided he's going to be a Brown.
yeah.
Now he's going anywhere from the 104 to the 108. But to your point, like if there is I don't think there's ever been that much of an argument of a player, whether they're going to be potentially the 101 or the 110, like
Yeah.
that's a pretty big range of outcomes.
And
So
and
yeah,
I actually think the range of outcomes are like even more than that. And like for a
right,
while, we were looking at him as a predominantly a corner who might play some snaps on offense. And look, like we still don't know. We still have no idea how he's going to end up being used. And it depends on landing spot as well. But like when I was putting this together, this is kind of my argument for if he is just a wide receiver, the range of outcomes in terms of like when he's going to be drafted in rookie drafts, I can see him being that prospect that just keeps sneaking all the way back. Because I mean, this is a bad comparison, but I remember Kadarius Toney going in the first round unexpectedly, and then you don't tend to get first round draft capital slipping all the way to the back of the second and rookie drafts. But people are just like, well, I didn't really like this player beforehand, so he was a first round talent, so he just keeps slipping further and further back. And for a while, that looked like a really exciting thing. And with Hunter, I can see people end up getting him like towards the middle or back of the second because people are just scared about wasting draft capital on him. But
right.
that to me just tells me that they first of all they're scared, but also like they're just not seeing the upside of what a special wide receiver Hunter truly is.
Yeah. Yeah. But to your point, like scared money don't make money, right?
Yeah,
And this is going to be a top 5 pick, likely to a wide receiver needy team. I love your breakdown of the strengths and weaknesses too. Like the strengths are strong. He's a little undersized when you look at the weaknesses, a little bit skinny, a little, bigger corners in the NFL might give him some trouble. But I think
yeah,
that top weakness is something that it can be fixed, right? If he is a
yeah,
full-time wide receiver, like I've had some conversations where they're bringing it up. He's like, they wasn't even in the offensive meeting rooms at
yeah,
CU, right? And so getting this guy to dedicate his craft to being a wide receiver, like the upside is enormous. And yeah, I'll go as far as to say it. He would be, I've tweeted it. I've said it on a show previously. I will say it again. I would prefer him to Ashton Jeanty at the 101
yeah,
if we know he's going to be a full-time wide receiver. And that's just, there's a few factors in there, like Jeanty playing at a small school, and just kind of the long-term viability of a wide receiver as opposed to a running back, and sinking that first pick into a running back is kind of, it's just inherently, it's going to have not as long of the
yeah.
shelf life. So we'll have to see how this unfolds. But I think the sentiment we're delivering is pretty clear that this is a very special player who deserves to be in that 101 conversation if he's going to be a full-time wide receiver.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So let's take a minute. Let's not get too far from that victory you almost tasted during Scott Fishbowl. So what was there, like 3,600 entrants? Is that I know you got to know this because when you get into top 5, you got to know how many people you beat out.
Yeah, it was over 4,000 this
Okay.
year, which was genuinely mad. It was the entire thing was genuinely a little bit of a whirlwind. And like I know I like people in the industry. I'm glad people to have recognized how impressive that sort of like top 5 finish is, even if I was very, very close to winning the whole thing.
Yeah.
Just to get to that stage is genuinely unreal in that competition.
Yeah, man. And I mean, like the proof is in the pudding, right? Like with a guy like you, it's like if you think Lewis doesn't know ball, then I don't know what to tell you, dude. Like the dude finished top 5 among over 4,000 people in a very, very complex scoring format. So for those who didn't play Scott Fishbowl, they nuked passing yards. They gave you a premium on first downs rushing, first downs receiving, the massive tight end premium. And I think probably the funnest twist was kick return yardage being extremely valuable. I think
Yeah.
100 kick return yards was 20 fantasy points, right? So like there was a week, and I know you had Debo on your roster, and I had him too, where he was just returning kicks.
Yeah.
Well, he did nothing all game and like actually fumbled too. But he had like 6 or 7 kick returns for like almost 200 yards. And it was like the average fantasy person who had him in their lineup was like, so upset. But then, like, if you had him in Scott Fishbowl, you were like the happiest man in the world, right? So,
Yeah.
very fun scoring settings. Talk to me a little bit because I went through and I did projections for every scoring, anything that equated to fantasy points. Again, first downs. There was you got a quarter point for just the running back getting a rushing attempt. Also,
Yeah.
the quarterback getting a rushing attempt. So factored that all in to create projections for points. Is that something that you did in preparation?
Not quite to the same level. So, what I like to always do is go back once you have the Sleeper League set up, or you can set up your own version, is go back with those settings to start looking through the last few years and
Yep.
starting to see if you can notice trends from that. I'm not someone that tends to do in-depth projections for the season ahead. What I will tend to do, like the biggest predictor that I've always found of future fantasy performance is previous fantasy performance, rather
Yep.
than trying to find this hidden metric that can sort of give you a key to who's going to be the best fantasy players going forward. It's normally, like it's overwhelmingly the people who were the best in the past few years. So I had a look back through previous years to start to see the trends and then compared them to like, okay, I've got an Excel spreadsheet of the 2023 finishes in a PPR league. Let's compare them to what it would be like in this format, in this scoring format. And the trends that I started to notice were like, first of all, obviously, like rushing was a huge benefit. That point 0.25 points per carry was a huge benefit.
Yeah.
So rushing quarterbacks to me in a superflex format, like that was the premium that I wanted to look towards. And then also, like, I was quite happy. Normally in PPR, you want bell cow running backs, but you want third down backs. You want people who are going to be getting receiving work as well. Actually, I was like, don't really care about that in this year. I'm quite happy with people who are just working on the ground. Nuked receiver a little bit, so I was happy to wait on
Yep.
that. And then tight end, there was a massive premium. So I was like, if I can get an elite tight end early, I'm quite happy. And then I'm going to take some stabs in the dark. Then the classic thing of like, I know the importance of stacking. I know even not in a best ball league, that's going to be what's going to get you the ceiling outcomes, particularly in what essentially towards playoffs becomes a tournament. It essentially does become a DFS game.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I did, and this I think is really interesting, against what others did for Scott Fishbowl, is I completely ignored returners. Um,
Oh, okay.
so so my thoughts were, you can predict, right? So you can predict the fact that return yards are going to be incredibly important. But when it comes to the draft, we don't even know at that point who the returners are. And the reason we
Right.
don't know that is because at that point, for 90% of teams, they don't know who their returners are. So yeah, when it comes to waivers later down, but then like return yards so aren't sticky. Like you were having people trying to figure out, okay, well, we've got the new dynamic kickoff, and this team likes to kick to this extent, and this team likes to do this strategy, and this
Yeah.
offense doesn't tend to punt often. And I'm like, there's just so many variables that I refuse to base my draft strategy off something that I don't really understand and I don't have confidence in taking Rashid Shaheed at the back of the first round, which you saw some people do and like did pay off until he got injured, to be fair. But
Right. He was killing it in Scott Fishbowl.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So my plan was, when it started getting towards later rounds, and I'd say that means sort of double digits, 10th to 11th round, I was going to start looking for players who I thought might have return upside as well as a relatively established role in their offense. So I
Right.
was going to start looking towards, for example, Jalen Warren, who I know returned some punts the year beforehand. The big one, and this was potentially the best draft pick that I made, aside from maybe Brian Thomas Jr., Bucky Irvin in like the 13th, 14th round, who I took because I liked it as a prospect, but also, you know, second or third choice running back coming into camp, late round pick, who we know is a dynamic receiver and we know has like great one cut agility, that's probably going to be a kickoff returner, isn't it? That's probably going to be a punt returner. Now, in reality, he actually didn't end up returning that many punts because he was the RB1 in the offense instead.
Right, right.
Um, but that was the strategy I took, was like, I want to find players with a role in the offense who might then have some returning upside rather than strategizing my entire thing about around returners who I don't even know who they're going to be. And even if I do know who they're going to be, I don't want to base a team off a
Strictly
score.
return. Yeah.
Yeah, a scoring system that's going to have so much volatility week in, week out. I'd rather take the players that I know are going to score, going to have a stable floor in the format, rather than base around returning, which is going to end up with people who some weeks have 40 points and the next week have 3 because they're never actually going to run the ball or catch a pass.
Yeah, I did. That's what burned me and got me eliminated. Whole lineup cooking, great lineup. Decided to put Eric Gray in my flex because I'm like, yeah, he's their returner. And they, the analytics said that the team they were facing that week like didn't touch back a lot. Didn't matter. He put up a donut for me when I
Yeah.
needed it most in the playoffs. And so there's words of wisdom from you there, man. And I guess last question on this is like, is there anything you think you could have done differently to win it all?
The problem is, Johnny, I know there's something that I could have done differently. And I even asked questions in the Fancy Sanctuary Discord of a lineup choice. And then I quickly was like, I'm going to ignore it because I don't want people to make this decision for me. So I had the decision between Cooper Kupp or Jalen McMillan as my starting wide receiver. At that point, I was only starting one because I didn't see it was worth it. And I
Right.
ended up going with Cooper Kupp because I was like, I just have a gut feeling about Jalen McMillan, but everyone says Cooper Cup's the right choice.
Yeah.
If I start Jalen McMillan, I win Scott Fishbowl. And it
Damn.
genuinely did come down to that one thing. I was even to the extent that I was annoyed when Jahmyr Gibbs, because it all came down to that Monday Night Football Lions playing the 49ers. And Jahmyr Gibbs, who I had, scored a long touchdown quite late into the game, and I was so pissed off by it because I was like, "Now
You
you've
knew it
made it
wasn't
that I
enough.
could have won this." Yeah,
Yeah.
if you hadn't done that, it wouldn't have mattered what I did. But now that
Yeah.
you've scored, if I'd done that the other way round, I would have won this whole damn thing.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you're getting some rest at night, man, because I can tell that that
It
I could
eats me
just
up,
hear it
Johnny.
in your voice. Well, cool, man. I think that's just tip of the cap to you, man. That is so cool to
Thank
get
you.
that far in a tournament. I think a lot of people got close, but to actually get that close is remarkable. So let's shift back to your rookie guide and get into some more players that we are high on. But first, I am going to run a quick promo.
Rookie, 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 rookie. It's all about rookie talk in fantasy football right now. So why not go use all that knowledge to do something other than a mock draft? Chris Jimino won $8,000 with just 2 teams last year, and each draft took 5 minutes. That's pretty good ROI. You can start doing rookie drafts for money today on Fast Draft. The Origins tournament is live. It is the place to go and monetize your knowledge of rookies and use your favorite player profiler host promo code for a $25 deposit match. Now let's go start drafting faster.
The U.S. is thankful that is not in the U.K., or else Lewis would be taking all our hard-earned money. And let's get back into your rookie guide, man. The next guy I wanted to talk about, certified my guy. I love that you put that for your guys on the top of the guide. And again, for everyone watching, this is free to everyone. So you can go to Lewis's X page, and he's got the link right in his bio. So very cool stuff. A lot of hard work you put into this. Talk to me though. I mean, this guy you've got pretty high on your RB rankings. RB6, right? And that's ahead of a lot of really solid players. So what is your level of confidence in Harvey? And maybe talk to me a little bit about your favorite trait that he brings.
Yeah, so I think one thing which is worth saying about the rookie guide is like it's entirely film grades. So this isn't analytically based. There's obviously a lot of analytics that I've looked into afterwards, but it's entirely I've sat down and I've watched as much as possible of these players, and this is what I think. And I try to really create it in a vacuum and just go, okay, I'm not going to listen to anything from anyone else. I'm going to figure out what I think about these players. I'm going to put it out there, and then we'll see what other people, how consensus falls. And RJ Harvey was just someone that I really fell in love with watching the tape. And I think that the trait that really led me to him is that lateral agility. So there's a few things in running backs and wide receivers that I tend to lean into and traits that I tend to look for that just get me excited about a player. And definitely like being able to combine lateral agility with burst is something that really excites me for a running back, which obviously you can see are quite key, are quite clear with Harvey. And then like natural hands, it's not about because we so rarely see running backs featured in the passing game in complicated ways in college. So for me, it's about like can they run a route? Can they create and find space in the open field? Can they bring in passes outside of their frame? That's the most important things for me, more than, when you get these very special players. But a lot of the time, how often do you see running backs used on more than sort of check down screens, wheel routes? Like that's the majority of what we see from backs in college. Then
Yeah.
with Harvey, like it was just all of the things that I like to see from a player, he does, and he looks great doing them. So really versatile out of the backfield, great at bringing passes outside of his frame, really fantastic lateral agility, but great at then like getting north south quickly once he does start to bounce. And then like he just seems a really like quite well-rounded player to me. Now, like there are definitely some concerns, and there's a world in which he can't end up as he doesn't end up as a three down back. But like to me, the upside is absolutely huge of anyone outside of that consensus top five. And actually, when I put this together, I've got the projected draft value at kind of the beginning of the third, and when I do my post-draft changes, that's going to rocket up because this has been someone that the community has just fallen in love with as much as I have.
Yeah, he's a very solid player. Great story. Former high school quarterback. Worked his way back from a torn ACL in college. And I think one of the funny things is like people will dog on the height, which is not very important for running
No.
backs. And he's taller than in the 101 Ashton Genty, right?
Yeah.
So they're both 5'8", but he's got like a quarter or half an inch on him. And so I think you can kind of just throw that out with the bathwater. And I think the one thing that is maybe a reasonable concern from fantasy managers is just the age, right? That he was a little bit older. So any sentiment on that?
I think not a huge amount to me. So the age thing is something I'll only really pay attention to that much if it's a ridiculous outlier. So, for example, if you're looking at like Tyler Shugg or even to an extent looking at Tyler Warren as well, to me, with running backs, like it's more about tread on the tires than it is age in particular. And I think when you look at some players coming through, I mean, even talking about Ashton Genty as well, like the amount of carries that they've seen in college is going to be more important to me than whether they're 21 or 22 coming into the NFL. I think because it's not really a developmental position, players tend to come in and be nearly as good as they're going to be as rookies. It's not a case of, okay, well, you're a tight end, you're going to take 2 to 3 years classically to become as good of a player as you're going to be, or as a quarterback, you're going to take a few years to develop. So by the time you're developed, you're going to be 29. With running backs, if you come into the league a little bit older, it doesn't really bother me so much because you're still only going to have like that 4 to 6 year window anyway.
Exactly. And when you say that, I think about a guy like Tyrone Tracy last year. People were like,
Yeah.
oh, this guy's 24 years old. It's like, who gives a crap if he's, to your point, no tread on the tires, former wide receiver. If you're telling me he's going to come in and play like he was at Purdue and be elusive and solid and give me a couple good years at running back, then I'm all in. And I like what you said. It's less developmental. It's like, do you have the vision? Do you have the juice? Are you electric? Are you explosive? That's what matters at running back. So couldn't agree more. I got to get to this next guy because what really made me giddy about getting you on this show was that you had the same player comp as me for him. So I'll pull up his screen or the draft guide again. That's Devin Neal, running back from Kansas. And I mean, I'll just cue in, draw people's eyes to the screen. Play style comparison, Bucky Irving. And that's exactly who I had him as my player comp for, is just that make you miss, that kind of stick a foot in the ground and burn a couple people. Neither of those guys had track speed, right? Both in the 4.5s, but just consistently finding ways to crank out positive yardage. So that was kind of why I landed on that player comp for him. But what makes you say Bucky?
So it's very much like, so I loved Bucky coming out of college. It's someone that I was really high on. I think it was my RB2 when all was said and done.
Nice.
And like, I'm very clear with the play style comparison thing, because that's obviously the thing that a lot of people key in on, that like it's play style comparison. It's not a ceiling comparison. It's not this is exactly who they're going to end up being. It's like, they remind me, they move in the same way. They're a similar
Exactly.
type of player. And it's that the one cut agility, the explosive first step, and it's the make you miss, gone. And that is what, like, because Devin Neal's a relatively different size to Bucky Irving as well. And like he
Little
definitely
thicker.
has like more of a nose for the end zone as well. And Bucky Irving seemed in college to have better long speed, although when he tested, that didn't seem to be the case. But it's just that immediate, you watch them able to make people miss in a phone box, and it's very much I'm not just making you miss, I'm making you miss, and the moment I'm past you, gone. Like
Yep.
that reminded me so much of Bucky coming out of college, that
Yeah.
like that immediately was the comparison to me.
I love it, man. And I will say, if anybody's about to pass on Devin Neal in a rookie draft, like just go watch the tape one more time, like,
Yeah.
because the guy is just incredible. One of my favorite players in this class. That being said, you have him as RB7, but behind Harvey, so you like Harvey a little more. My question for you there is, like, let's say that Devin Neal gets better draft capital, maybe slightly better landing spot, right? Would you adjust the ranks accordingly, or are you kind of baked in that you're going to be taking Harvey over Neal no matter what?
No, I think it's going to be draft capital more than landing spot that makes the difference to me. And this is my first year doing the rookie guide, and I have had a fair amount of requests actually to put a second one out after the draft with landing spot to see how it adjusts it. And to me, I think the way that I want to do it, because I don't really like rating landing spots. We're really bad at judging landing spots and judging how good they're going
Yes,
to be. And so for me, what I think I want to do is have a almost like a very small modifier in a model for, okay, I'm going to go through and I'm going to pick out my top 5 landing spots for running backs and my worst 5 landing spots. And if they hit one of them, it's going to have a tiny little slider either way. But for the other 20 teams in the league, it's going to do nothing. So like if he lands himself on, let's say, the Steelers or the Broncos, and like
yeah,
they both go in the third round. Devin Neal lands himself on the Broncos, and for some reason the Eagles take RJ Harvey. Like, yeah, that's one of them's going to have the best landing spot, one of them's going to have the worst. Okay, that's going to make the difference there. But like, I can definitely see there being a conversation there, and they're definitely within the same tier as well. So there's going to be a lot of change within tiers. I don't think I'll be willing to make a significant change of like vaulting a player in and out of a tier unless there's like a significant issue, like we have someone truly drop down the board,
draft
or we have,
capital, right?
yeah, it's a
Falling
draft
into the fifth
capital
or sixth
thing.
round, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I just did a show with Marvin Eloquin, very sharp guy. And he brought up a really good point that he thinks that's one of the biggest flaws that fantasy managers make is
yeah,
overcompensating based on landing spot. And that ultimately we really need to be leaning on draft capital as sort of a proxy to landing
yeah,
spot. Like, yeah, even if, like, we brought up the scenario of Ashton Genty going to the Eagles, and it's like fantasy managers would lose their freaking minds, right, if that happened. But at the end of the day, if they're willing to trade up and sink a first-round pick into Ginty, situations change quickly. You know,
Yeah.
Barkley's not he's not cooked by any stretch of the imagination. But at the same time, like if they're willing to invest that amount of draft capital into a player like him, then you know he's going to have a role. So ultimately leaning on draft capital more than landing spots. So completely agree with the sentiment there. Let's dig a little bit deeper into your running back rankings. I kind of forced this question on the show sheet. I said, give me your favorite rookie running back in the later Browns and tell me why it's Brashard Smith, right? So, I mean, you have him as a certified my guy, so you can't run away from that question.
No.
Talk to me about what you saw with Brashard Smith. By the way, love the player comp of Chase Brown. That's like one of my – I know a lot of people say they hate player comparisons. I like them when they're good. And I think your player comparisons throughout this whole draft guide are as good as I've seen from anybody. So talk to me a little bit more about what you like about Brashard Smith and what made you make him a certified my guy.
Yeah, so I think like with the my guys, I really wanted to try and find people later down the board. I mean, there is a player we'll come on to talk about a little later where it's just a case of I just love them so much that they're going to be a my guy regardless where they're drafted.
Right.
But I wanted to find some players later down the board. And when I watched Brashard Smith, so obviously for people who haven't watched him, he is a former wide receiver who played 1 year of running back when he transferred to SMU. And yeah, you can see straight away that he has not played this position before. And you can definitely see that like there's some issues with his footwork and there's some issues with his vision and like fumbling, definitely an issue for him. And so it should be like it's a different style of ball carrying to how you work as a wide receiver. But when we speak about, you know, the things that I like to look for in a running back, and particularly then the things I like in a wide receiver as well, like I love being able to line up all levels of the field and being able to work all levels of the field. Brashard Smith can do both of those things. Like the lateral agility was really impressive to me for a a smaller back. I was really excited to see the way that he can then work out of the backfield and to see some of the running back traits from him having only played this position for a year. The thing is for him is like this is such a dynamic weapon that you can line up in the backfield. He can run routes out of the backfield. He could work out of the slot. He can work on the boundary. Like when I was cutting up a little bit of a highlight reel for him for my sleepers video, which I released on Sunday, there's routes where he's absolutely mossing corners. Like I think this is the best receiver at the running back position in this class. And I can't look over that. And yeah, there's definitely going to be some deficiencies. Yeah, I think he's probably not going to be a 3-down workhorse. But wow, if he can work on that fumbling and if he can work on that vision and work on like keeping that footwork tight behind the line of scrimmage and even through the line of scrimmage, this guy has such huge upside. And he's currently the DLF ADP that I saw most recently is like midway through the 4th round. There is no one at that point in the draft, in a rookie draft, with the same amount of upside as Smith to me.
Yeah, especially in PPR leagues. Hate to keep bringing this guy up, but again, this kind of comes in my head a little bit akin to a Tyrone Tracy, right? A wide receiver convert into running back, the best hands in the class, the best ability to be a receiving threat in the class, but some ball security issues. We saw that with Tyrone Tracy. Actually, a guy I was scooping up at the end of rookie drafts all last year, and now I'm kind of looking to sell, to be honest, because it's like the value is good. You could get almost a like early second, late first. I don't think you'll actually get a late first for Tracy, but if you could, you probably take that money and run because we know that ball security is job security. I think that's my biggest knock on Brashard Smith is like there were plays where he didn't fumble, but like got the ball knocked out of his hands and then hung on to it still. And it's like, you got to tote that rock really solid. We talked about Devin Neal a minute ago. He's a guy with a really low fumble rate throughout his whole career at Kansas. So those types of things I think will ultimately be probably why you don't have him higher in rankings and probably why people pushing Brashard Smith down a little bit, right, is because of that, just to your point, he's still got – we talked about how running back is kind of like it's not a developmental position. It is a little bit if you've never played running back, right?
Yeah.
So he's got some growing to do, but the upside's tremendous, especially in PPR leagues. So awesome stuff, man.
Thank you.
Well, I think, this whole class, we could spend the whole time talking about running backs, right? Like, because this is such a deep class. But I think where really drafts will be won and lost is hitting on wide receivers, in my opinion, and making those right decisions. So I'm going to pull up another certified my guy you have, and I'm all over this guy too, man. He was one of my top, like at the combine. Again, these are just guys running around in tights. The film on field should speak much more, but you just saw a level of chemistry that he had with quarterbacks he had never played with before, and like almost just that he was that picturesque guy of like they knew where he was going to be. They knew he's just a very good, like having that connection with the quarterback of like, okay, I'm going to throw it there because I know he's going to be out of his break and he's going to catch it. And if he's doing that with guys he didn't even play with, I think that is very indicative of a guy who can get on an NFL roster, quickly be kind of a model citizen, and is going to be in the right place at the right time and earn playing time. So I'm really high on this guy. When I asked him at the combine, like, what's the one trait that teams are going to love about you? What's your best trait? He said, it's my competitive nature, right? And I think he showed that at the combine. And every single thing he did, he was, blazing fast speed, awesome bench press. Like the guy's a gym monkey. He's the way he runs his routes with detail, I think shows that he is just a guy who's incredibly, focused on the game of football, which is just awesome to see, with all these guys getting NIL money and, trying to become almost more of like media moguls than football players nowadays. It seems like this is a true football player. So that's my stance on why, again, like this was such an easy show sheet to put together, Lewis, because your guys are mostly my guys, right? So
helps. Yeah, it helps.
Talk to me about what stood out to you about Jaylin Noel.
Yeah, so I'd spoken about the things that I look for and that I love to see in running backs. And with receivers, it's normally lateral agility and quick twitch more so than long speed. Like that excites me way more. It's the ability to line up, to be line up versatile, and it's the ability to attack all three levels of the field. So I will massively prefer finding someone who is a quick twitch athlete, who is a good route runner, than finding someone who's a size, speed, strength freak. And so my guy last year was Jalen McMillan, like, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of that in terms of I think Noel can threaten all three levels of the field. I think you can line him up anywhere. I think he's like shockingly good at contested catches for a guy who's less than 6 foot. I think he's probably going to start off as a slot, but like the frame is compact. He's like more difficult to bring down than you'd think. And like that bench press was unbelievable. He outbenched Jack Besh, who has like 30 pounds and like 4 inches on him, which is insane. I mean, he was benching the same as like what would have been fine for like an O lineman.
Tight end,
It was
better than tight ends, yeah.
it was genuinely mad. And I just think like to me, if he was 3 inches taller, we'd be talking about Jaylin Noel in the same tier as guys like, I mean, like probably still below Emeka Egbuka, but like we'd be talking about him in that level. And so I have him all the way up at wide receiver 6.
Which
And
is
that's
high.
and that's including Travis Hunter as my wide receiver 2. Currently, because just I can't have him as a wide receiver 1 because I don't know. But like I have him highest of like anyone that I sort of talk with about rankings, because I just don't really see the issue with him. I don't really get what I'm missing to have him dropped all the way down. When I heard some people talking recently about like, I think he lands as like a, solid wide receiver 4, good special teams ability, like probably not the most upside. I'm like, I don't see what I'm missing. This is a guy who went to the combine and had a 4.3940 and the highest bench press and the highest vertical leap, despite only being like 5'11", and can run routes with precision and can contest catches. And like I don't see what it is that he can't do. Like, yeah, maybe it's the ability to work through contact in the middle of the field. Maybe it's the fact that his arms are quite short.
Yeah, but I
But
mean,
it,
he was still very good in contested catches situations, long down the
yeah,
field, to your point. And man, I'll say it. I know I keep hyping up your player comparisons, but Jaden Reed, that might have been one of my favorite ones in this entire rookie guide you put together. And I think it kind of goes to what I was talking about earlier about like a true football player, right? Matt LaFleur referred to Jaden Reed as a war daddy. I think Jaylin Noel is this class's war daddy.
yeah,
I had my player comp for him as Golden Tate, just because of that
yeah.
ability to be all over the field. Again, I think I'll give you your flowers. I think player comparison is actually a little bit better, but there's certainly a lot to like with this guy. I think the one knock I saw, I talked about on a previous show, was just how incredibly low his missed tackles force was. Like I
Yeah.
didn't expect it because you'd think, oh, this is a twitchy guy. He's got some make you miss. He's got some nuanced route running, but just kind of, I think it was like 5% missed tackles force, where Jaden Higgins, his counterpart, was at 25%, right? And so that's something, I don't know if that's just a product of the offense they were in. It's something that I'll have to dig a little bit deeper on. And I'm just
Yeah.
curious if you've got any closing thoughts on that or Jaylin Noel as a whole.
I think the missed tackles force thing is interesting to me, and there's definitely something that I want to look into about the fact that Iowa State have two consensus like top 50 wide receivers, potentially even first round wide receivers, and like no one's spoken about Iowa State really all year, or no one's talking about the
Right.
quarterback. And so I want to look into a little bit more about, as opposed to when I'm watching film and I'm watching the receiver. I
Right.
want to spend a bit more time, maybe post draft, when I have a bit more time to be like, let's watch a bit more about the offense because it's not an offense I've really paid attention to, and be
Yeah.
like, what am I missing here in terms of the way the offense works, the way it's called, the way the quarterback plays, that might give me a little bit more evidence and a little bit more detail about Nolan Higgins.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'll be honest, when I was watching the film, I was like, man, this quarterback doesn't seem terrible. I've never heard of this guy before, but I'm like, you get two high-end producing wide receivers like that in college. Like it clearly wasn't the deficient quarterback play of some other teams that have been, more well documented. So next guy I want to talk about with you, because like this might be the strongest stance you took in this guide. Uh, and I don't know if I'm eye to eye with you about it, but I
Yeah.
want to hear what you have to say. Like, again, I hope a little discourse is okay, but I'm going to pull it up. Is Elic Ayomanor, right? Like, this to me was crazy, seeing that you had him at wide receiver 10 in your rankings. I think a lot of people really like this guy for his size, his athleticism, how he torched Travis Hunter for 3 touchdowns. And so what led you to kind of push him down in your rankings? Is there a red flag that maybe people aren't seeing that you kind of caught on to?
So there are a couple of things, and I think for me with Ayomanor, it's less about him being me pushing him down my rankings and more a case of like other players being pushed up. And I'm actually quite high on this wide receiver class. And to me, like he's in a tier with probably the players from 7 to 10. And I actually think I probably, if I reevaluate, will drop Trey Harris down a little bit. But the four players there are Trey Harris, Jaden Higgins, Jack Besh, and Ayomanor. And I think like it's relatively consensus to have those around the same sort of area. To me, Ayomanor's just at the bottom of that tier. And I think to me it's a case of I didn't particularly see the high football IQ is there. I didn't particularly see a trait that I fell in love with that I thought, okay, this is where he wins. It's a case of like, there's a lot of tools there that I think we can work with, and there's a lot of things that I think he does well. The main thing for me, and I think it's about, I think he relies a bit too much on physicality and like the separation score. Actually, when I looked into it afterwards and looking at PFF guide, is actually relatively low against single coverage. But the main thing that's an issue for me is that like someone needs to teach him how to line up at the line of scrimmage. Because to me, the way he stands is so upright and flat that I think the moment you play against the Jalen Ramsey or Patrick Surtain, you're just going to get blown off your route immediately. And so I think for me that like this isn't a player that I hate. And again, like this discourse has come up quite a few times with like, oh, you have a wide receiver 10. This must be like someone you're disgusted by. And I'm like, no, I haven't wide receiver 10, but like I really like all of the I have like second
Yeah.
or third round grades all the way down to like wide receiver 14 or 15. Like I actually just really like the class. I think
Yeah.
Ayomanor to me, like I don't see an exceptional trait that makes me fall in love with him. And I see a couple of weaknesses as well. Like the route tree as well is a slight concern to me. If you look at particularly like 2024, it's like I think it's like a third of it was hitch routes in
Yeah, a
terms of
lot of
its
comebacks, a
targeted
lot of
routes.
slants, a lot of those.
Yeah, it's basically hitch, slants, goes. But like
Yeah.
even slants are his third most targeted route. He had 3 times as many hitch routes as he did slants. Like
Wow.
it's a
Yeah.
lot of the same thing. So I just think there's a little bit more projection to his profile than some people seem to think. And to me, like the lack of then an outstanding trait just drops him down a little bit. But again, it's not to say that I hate the player, it's to say that there are other players that I prefer.
Yeah, no, I'm you make a good point. I like the Michael Pittman comparison. My comparison might be not as so like I like this guy. To your point, I think the big note that people can take away from this segment of the show is that the wide receiver class as a whole is not as bad as some people are painting it out to be.
No.
Right? We're going to get a lot of starting wide receivers out of this class. My player comparison for him was Gabe Davis, like a guy who can catch a pass, take it to house, like has some, some pop to his game, but lacks a little bit of that like quick twitch and agility and kind
Yeah.
of change of direction that maybe you want to see, like fluidity, right? Maybe the best word
Yeah.
for it. So
And someone that you're always going to look at and be like, why can't you do this every game? Like there's something
consistency.
there with
Yeah.
you. So why are you not, we saw Gabe Davis in the playoffs against the Chiefs a few years ago.
Right.
We saw Ayomanor against Travis Hunter. Like, why, if you can do that, what's stopping you from doing that every single game you're on the field?
Right, right. And I think to that point, it is just some of the things you talked about the way he lines up, some of the, I'll call it deficiencies with the way, kind of the way he just his agility. And then, the one thing you didn't have as a weakness that a lot of people have dragged him through the mud for is drops, right? He's had some focus
Yeah.
drops. He's had his hands aren't the best in the class by any stretch of the imagination. Made some awesome catches, but dropped some simple catches as well. And that really matters, right? So, good discourse, man. I think it's always good. Like, it's fun to talk about the guys we love, but I also wanted to call out one or two where I was like, man, this is a little bit against consensus, right? Because people have said he could go in the first round, and we really never know. We just don't know for a fact where these guys are going to go until the draft happens. But I think you're right on your guide that he's probably a more of a second round guy. And there will probably be a couple of wide receivers in that second round. And ultimately, he will be in that tier that you mentioned. So,
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, let's close it out with a certified my guy. Oh, well, he's actually not on your chart. He doesn't say certified my guy, but this is, I'm going to be talking about, I've talked about him on previous shows. We're talking about him right now, and I'm going to be talking about him on future shows because this guy, I have him as a my guy on the Player Profiler website. If you go and look up his Player Profiler, you will see my face on his page because I've planted my flag. And that is Colston Loveland. You're tight end 1 in this class. And you and I see extremely eye to eye on that. I think when you think about fantasy football, to me, I place a premium on tight ends who are going to be pass catching weapons, right?
Yeah.
And he's the best pass catching weapon that you can ask for from this class of tight end. And, I'd say he's not Brock Bowers, but he might be the best pass catching tight end in the past few years behind Brock Bowers. And so that's my sentiment on him. What led you to kind of say, hey, this is my tight end one? And also, I believe you're 108 in single QB drafts. Like, why do you have him that high?
Yeah, so to me, like, again, he's not Brock Bowers, but like no one really is.
Right.
And he just does everything that you want a tight end to do. I actually think he is a much better blocker the more that I've watched him, or much more functional blocker, and with room to grow into being a great blocker as well. Like, and he really tries. It's the athleticism for his size that he is such a fantastic route runner. He has such fluid hips, but also such fantastic explosivity after the catch. Like, he has, really, really huge catch radius, so he can work in the red zone. But that yards after the catch and like the crispness of the routes is something you don't expect to see from someone of this size. And like, I just think, particularly when it comes to comparing between him and Tyler Warren, like Tyler Warren's so weird, man. I love watching Tyler Warren, but Tyler Warren, when we talk about him as like he's this complete tight end, he's not. He's like he's a running back and wildcat quarterback and a center and a tight end and everything else. And like Tyler Warren is just like he's like Brock Lesnar to me, that it's just like uncontrolled aggression and no real, I'm not really sure of what like the precision is there. Like, I love him, but it's all a case of being like, I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you, I'm faster than you, I'm going to try and kill you. Whereas Loveland, to me, I'm like, I know that you know the game. There's so much precision to that, to the way that you play as a tight end. Like, I just love watching him, man. And like, yeah, in terms of one quarterback leagues, my 108, superflex leagues, my 109, I only have Cam Ward ahead of him. And like, I am gonna have no problem taking him at that level. And even if it ends up settling with ADP a little bit later, like, I just love this player. I probably need to add the certified my guy in, because I only have Mason Taylor as my guy for tight ends. Every other position has at least two, I think. But like, I'm so in love with Loveland.
Yeah,
That
me too, dude.
yeah.
And I have Loveland is tight end 1, Warren is tight end 2, and Taylor is tight end 3.
Yeah.
I've kind of shared that, Warren's a bit of a fade for me at just kind of the cost that I think he's going to go at. And
Yeah.
to your point, just like, I don't see the same translatable skills in terms of like, he's either Rob Gronkowski or like Theo Johnson at the next level. And like, it's hard for me to bet that a guy is going to be physically imposing like a Gronkowski is. Like, that's just harder for me to translate. And, my last thing I'll say about Loveland, one of my favorite traits is like so many plays on the tape where he's going up over the middle, going up for the ball, basically knowing he's going to get his head taken off and either coming up and coming down with it. But the real fun ones are when he goes up, comes down with it, lands on his feet, and keeps running.
Carries on going.
Most people are like going up just to come down alive at that point. Like, this is another, just to me, a real football player, guy who went to Michigan. And did a lot of dirty work. People are going to say this guy couldn't block, couldn't do this.
Yeah.
He was in a pro-style offense that ran the football a ton. And I asked him at the combine, I'm like, do you wish they featured the pass more? And he was like, no, man. Like, I wouldn't change a thing about my time at Michigan. I learned how to be a complete tight end. So I think that spoke volumes to sort of his mental, his demeanor, and the fact that I think he's going to be just a fantastic pro. So I love it, man. Well, this has been a great show. I want to close out and just kind of run through the final things here so people can see what they get. Like, in addition to all those player breakdowns, you put profile videos for these guys at the bottom. You put your rankings at the end here. This is just so well done, man. And I think a lot of people can get a lot of value out of digging into your rookie guide, and you're one of the nicest guys in the industry as well. So show Lewis some love. Yeah, man. Again, I've got your handle there on the overlay, but anything else you want to plug up before we end the show?
Yeah, absolutely. So FF_pancake on Twitter, Fancy Pancake on YouTube. I'm approaching 500 subscribers, which is nice. It's not, I think we're at like 5, 6 months now that I've been doing the YouTube.
Fantastic.
There's the rookie guide you can find on YouTube or on Twitter. And for as you mentioned, there's a rookie profile video on each of the 50 prospects that you can find on YouTube as well. So go and give it some love, subscribe to the channel, interact with me on Twitter, let me know what you think of the guide. Like, I've loved seeing people's thoughts on it so far, and talking it through with you today has been so much fun. But I
Yeah,
love
bro.
just hearing people say, I love what you spoke about this player. I hate what you said about this guy. Like, you're so wrong on him. And I'm like, yeah, let's talk about it. I might be, but let's talk it through.
Have a conversation, man. And yeah, I mean, videos on every prospect, a complete rookie guide, giving it away out of the goodness of your heart, man. Like that, I think speaks volumes to just like the level of love that you have for this stuff, and just the level of like, you're a beast in this space. So really happy to have you on the show, man. You're welcome back anytime. And
Thank you, man.
if you guys like the show, give it a like, comment any questions you have for Lewis and I. We will get together and get you answers. And then make sure you're subscribing to the Player Profiler Now YouTube page as well, because I will have great guests like Lewis coming on all season. I'm gonna ask Lewis as soon as I end the show if he'll come back on. So thank you guys for watching, and good luck winning your fantasy